All right, y'all. Welcome to the show. Welcome. So, still got stuff on Israel, Palestine. It ain't going away. It's only getting worse in many respects. There is some good news today. There is some good news because the U.S. and Venezuela have actually reached some semblance of a peace agreement, which is definitely a welcome development. Then we also have a new national poll on the presidential election. And, I think Trump has been up an average of like 1 or 2 points recently, and there's some outlier polls where he's up more. Now this is the first poll I've seen where Biden actually has a big lead on Trump in the general election. We'll talk about that. And then later on in the show, we will discuss Elon Musk. I don't know if he's just the dumbest man on the planet or if he's intentionally trying to tank Twitter, but just the world's worst decision of all time. We'll talk about that as well. All right, so without further ado, let's go ahead and jump into it here. And everybody do me a big favor, please click subscribe. It's deeply appreciated. It helps us in the algorithm, and we're trying to continue to grow the secular talk community. All right, let's do it. With the Israel-Gaza situation and everything surrounding it, I've seen everything, man. I've seen media coverage that's phenomenal in terms of print media doing a really, really good job. I've seen print media do a really horrible job. I've seen some people on TV, like Jake Tapper, do a really good job, and I've seen others do a horrendous job. I've seen everything all over the map. But I think the most pervasive narrative is much less of a concern for Palestinian civilians than Israeli civilians. There was the Hamas terror attack, which massacred innocent civilians, and there was widespread condemnation over it, of course, as there should be. But the collective punishment retaliation from the Israeli government, there's a lot more, moral ambiguity around that for a lot of these media figures. So here we have Jesse Waters of Fox News. He's going to talk about this, and let's see what he says.
I don't think we can have a Palestinian state at this point. I've had it with the Palestinians. I've given up on the Palestinians. If I was in Israel, I wouldn't be talking about a Palestinian state right now. I don't think Joe Biden should be talking about a Palestinian state right now. And I don't like how people tried to differentiate between the Palestinians and Hamas. To me, I see people with guns. That's Hamas. The people without the guns are the Palestinians. They believe the same thing. The Palestinians hire Hamas to run their government. You poll them, they all love killing Jews. It's in their charter. They say they believe in suicide bombings. Every time a Palestinian refugee goes to another country, it doesn't work out so well for the other country and for those Palestinians. No one wants them. You don't see Egypt opening up their doors. You don't see Jordan opening up. You don't see the Saudis. Why don't they want the Palestinians, Dana? I think we all know why they don't want the Palestinians, and it's not working out, having these Palestinians and Hamas right next door to the Israelis.
Wow. That's got to be up there with one of the most hateful rants I've heard in a while. So he says, quote, "I don't think we can have a Palestinian state. I've had it with Palestinians," and he doesn't like that people try to differentiate between the Palestinians and Hamas. So in other words, according to Jesse Waters, they're all guilty enough. Whoever Israel wants to bomb, whoever Israel wants to kill, the fact that they want to do a medieval siege and take away food, fuel, water, electricity from everybody, good enough for me because I think they're all basically Hamas. Palestinians equal Hamas. So let's be clear about something, and I'm sure all you know this by now. Hamas won an election in 2006. There hasn't been an election since. They've held on to power in an authoritarian, dictatorial way. So in many ways, Palestinians are the victims of Hamas. There hasn't been an election since. About half the population is 18 years old or younger. So I've seen estimates that somewhere between 7% and 14% of the current population of Gaza were the people who voted for Hamas. Now, by the way, so that's a fact, but also, let me just say, that fact doesn't really matter much because even if 100% of Palestinians voted for Hamas, an innocent civilian is an innocent civilian. So is George W. Bush and Dick Cheney responsible for their war crimes, or is it George W. Bush, Dick Cheney, and the 150 million Americans who voted for them? Should Grandma Gertrude in Arkansas have to go in front of a war crimes tribunal because she supported George W. Bush in the 2000 election? Should she? No, that's absurd, right? So by the same token, if every Palestinian had voted for Hamas and the election was yesterday, a grandma's still a grandma, right? If you're not committing crimes, you can't just make up a thought crime and say Palestinians are guilty enough. Look, these things are obvious. People should know this. Now, by the way, the dumbest part of his commentary is this. He doesn't understand what's at the heart of the issue here. He doesn't get it. The heart of the problem is illegal occupation, apartheid, no human rights, no political rights, no voting rights for Palestinians. Gaza is a giant open-air prison. It's a police state. Israel controls most of the borders. Egypt controls one. They have no self-determination and no hope. They're treated as subhuman. And then in the West Bank, of course, you have the illegal Israeli settlers, the ultra-Orthodox illegal Israeli settlers. They just bulldoze Palestinian villages and steal their land all willy-nilly, and they have the backing of the government at the same time as they do it. So that's the core of the problem. Now, in many instances, of course, that's going to breed resentment and hatred. Like, why are we not treated like we're humans? I'll support anybody who fights back. That becomes the mindset. And you know what? Oftentimes that leads to, sometimes the people who fight back are vicious and brutal and barbaric, and they kill civilians on the other side, which is terrible and condemnable. But he makes it seem like, and I hate this so much, it's just blind hatred across the board. Are there some people in the Palestinian territories who are just blind, have blind hatred? They have an ethnic hatred and a religious hatred of Israel and Jews. Yeah, but by the same token, on the Israeli side, you have illegal ultra-Orthodox settlers who also may have a blind hatred of Palestinians and Arabs and Muslims. The fact of the matter is, when it comes to the Palestinians, the core of the problem is that there's an illegal occupation, there's an apartheid state, it's a police state, there's no human rights for Palestinians. And they're permanently occupied by a hostile power. Like, that's the problem. And so he says, well, you know, we shouldn't have a Palestinian state. Okay, well then expect this kind of backlash to continue in the future. Doesn't mean it's good when Hamas kills innocent Israeli civilians, but it's like a law of nature that that's going to happen until you address what the problem is, what the core of the problem is. Look, the two potential solutions are one state, equal rights for all, end of conversation. So it's basically the South Africa apartheid solution, where it's like, just get rid of the apartheid state, right? That's one solution. The other solution is the 1967 borders, two states, equal UN recognition, UN peacekeepers, build a giant wall to separate the Palestinian territories and the Israeli territories, separate, cool off, end of conversation, right? Those are the two potential solutions. What is not at all a solution, which will lead to more violence and more bloodshed, it will be the cycle of violence continuing, is what he's saying. He says, I don't think we can have a Palestinian state. I've had it with Palestinians. There's no difference between Palestinians and Hamas. Look, I would love to ask him. There's over 1,000 Palestinian children who have been killed. Are you okay with that? Is he going to say, like, well, they were future Hamas members anyway, so who cares? Is that his position? It just seems to me like he is of the mindset, there's pure good and pure evil in this conversation, and that's the end of it. Look, in the same way, Hamas is pure evil. An IDF soldier who snipes children, they're pure evil too. And an illegal Israeli settler who steals Palestinian land willy-nilly, they're pure evil too. So look, in this conflict, there's many shades of gray, there's many nuances, but there also is pure good and pure evil. And it's not as simple as he makes it sound, where all Palestinians bad, all Israelis good. And I mean, this should go without saying, but this is massive dehumanization rhetoric. Remember, this is at the same time that they were saying, the Israeli president was saying, there are no civilians in Gaza. We don't consider any of them civilians. The other one called them, a military head called them human animals in Gaza. They're doing a medieval siege going after innocent civilians. And it's the dehumanization that allows that to be possible. Where if you view them as less than human, then you're not really committing a crime, because it's not an equal opposite human. And Fox is more than happy to feed that narrative. And it's disgusting. They're siding with the occupying power, and they make no bones about it whatsoever. Hey y'all, do me a favor and like and subscribe. It helps out big time in the algorithm. Click the bell as well for notifications when videos drop. and watch that video on screen right now. You know you want to.